Yes, my name's Caitlin Camp. I am one of 5 graduate students that is currently researching black bears here in Texas, and I'm excited to show you some of the things that we have been working on. So briefly go over some background information on bears, and then I'll dive into the 2 projects that we have going on. Trans-Pecos Black Bear Monitoring Project, which is focused in this region of Texas, and then also the Trans-Boundary Black Bear Project, which is focused in Southwest Texas. So black bears were once common throughout most of North America, ranging from Canada and Alaska to northern Mexico. But due to habitat loss, land fragmentation, and unregulated hunting, their geographic range has significantly decreased. And in the southern U.S., bears are now only found in a small portion of their original geographic range, including in Texas. And this graphic in the upper right shows North America. Orange is showing their current distribution, and red is showing where they used to exist. So some history of bears in Texas. They were completely extirpated from the state by the 1950s. And during this time, bear populations or small populations persisted in large uninhabited mountain ranges in northern Mexico. Population numbers recovered quickly in Mexico when they were considered endangered in 1986, and hunting seasons were closed indefinitely. But it wasn't, Texas populations took a little bit longer to recover to the state. So they were considered state threatened in 1987. But it wasn't until the early 1990s that consistent black bear sightings indicated they have returned to Texas, with initial sightings of a female with cubs in Big Bend National Park. So black bear populations are expanding through natural dispersal from Mexico to Texas, and this recent increase in sightings and human interactions indicate they are continuing to expand north into the Trans-Pecos region and also into the hill country. So as these bears expand, this does lead to the potential for new conflict situations, especially since we have seen that their landscape has drastically altered since they were last here in the early 1900s. And some of those being wildlife feeders are now on the landscape, like deer and quail feeders, as well as trash. Trash is a huge issue for bears in other parts of their range in the United States. So what we're doing at Borderlands Research Institute is to get ahead of the situation and provide as much information as we can to Texas Parks and Wildlife, as well as to private landowners, so we can coexist before conflict does happen. So the Trans-Pecos region is an interesting and unique system to study, given that in other areas of their range, they're not occurring in these dry desert landscapes. So black bears are very well adapted to life in the desert, despite being heavily furred, large-bodied mammals. They need to consume a lot of resources in a hot, arid environment. So their diet in the desert includes insects, prickly pears, plant roots such as satol and yucca, and also occasional carnivory such as aoudad, mule deer, and javelina. So the Trans-Pecos Black Bear Monitoring Project got started back in 2022 with the overarching goal of understanding local population ecology, aiding in understanding human-wildlife conflict, and helping inform management efforts in West Texas. So since 2022, we have captured and collared, and when I say collar, I mean placing GPS collars on these individuals. 38 individuals in Brewster and Terrell counties. 22 of those have been males, ranging in weight from 90 to 460 pounds, and 16 of those have been female, ranging in weight from 80 to 360. All bears have ranged in age from 2 to 13 years old, with a mean age at capture being around 4 years old. We've also been able to document survival of these collared individuals, and so far we've had 5 confirmed mortalities, and these have included human-wildlife conflict, illegal hunting, and then 1 bear we do believe died from natural causes, which is the 13-year-old bear. We have also been able to document reproduction in this area, and this is through visiting their dens in the springtime, or it's through cameras that are out on the landscape. So we've been able to document 10 females that have between 1 to 4 cubs, with an average litter size of 2 cubs. Unfortunately, we don't know much about cub survival at this point, but hopefully in the near future we can get more information on that. So one of the projects under the Trans-Pecos project was done by our master's student, Nicole Dickens. She actually recently just graduated, but her project was focused on examining black bear behavior. And this is all for these bears in the Trans-Pecos region. And all of her data was coming from these collared individuals that gave us GPS points back. So she found, she was able to classify when bears were resting, and this is when GPS points are more clustered together like shown here. And then also foraging, this GPS movements kind of showing that they're meandering around. Traveling movements, showing these more exploratory movements. And then she also found a distinct behavior of attractant use. And this is indicated by, there it is, these GPS points where it's kind of going back and forth to a central point. So she found that in the late spring, after bears have emerged from their dens, that females did increase their use of attractants. And this is most likely to keep up with energetic demands from lactating or to provide food for their young. We found that in the summer months, the males and females traveled more, and more so for males, indicating they're dispersing or searching for mates. Bears were also foraging more during the dawn and dusk hours and increasing their activity at nighttime, which we do believe is because the extreme temperatures that we experience here in Texas. And there's also a lack of attractant use during the summer months. This could be because there's a reduced availability of feed out on the landscape, so some ranchers don't fill their feed during the summer months. Or it could be because there's an abundance of natural forage, because this is the time of the monsoon seasons. And lastly, in the fall months, there was an increase in use of attractants, and this could be because these bears are using these concentrated sources of calories to prepare or to satisfy their nutritional requirements, prepare for the winter denning season. This is an example of this attractant use behavior. You can see the orange GPS points going back and forth to a central point. And when we zoomed into aerial imagery and when we visited the site, we did in fact find that this was a deer feeder. And with this increase in use of attractants like deer feeders actually comes the potential for damaging those feeders, which Austin from Texas Parks and Wildlife will actually touch on after me. So another project under the Trans-Pecos project is done by our PhD student, Matt Hewitt. So one big question that we have here in Texas are how many bears are there in the state? And one way to estimate population size and distribution is through the use of hair snares. This is a non-invasive method to be able to gather hair or DNA. And with these genetic samples, we can then identify individuals, and then with repeated detections, we can then estimate and model for density and abundance. So usually hair snares are actually constructed in areas with trees, like shown in this video here. This is in North Carolina. But unfortunately, in West Texas, we don't have a lot of trees. So what Matt is doing is he's trying to identify the best hair snare design to be able to gather these detections. And then with this information, determine the optimal spatial configuration of sampling locations out on the landscape. So some of his preliminary findings, he has found that this railroad tie design is the best of the prototypes that he tested. And as shown here, you can see the bear. Sorry, it's kind of blurry, but the railroad tie is wrapped in barbed wire. There is a scent layer in the middle of that, and the bear is rubbing on that and hopefully getting us a lot of hair. He also found that the fall was the period where it was the best time to monitor in order to estimate abundance and density. So with this Trans-Pecos study, what we have seen are these incredible movements by these bears, with many of them crossing into Mexico frequently. So this graphic is showing Big Bend National Park on your left and Lake Amistad near Del Rio on your right. And it's showing individuals that were collared from 2022 to 2025, and each color is representing a collared individual. And you can see some of these individuals are making these transboundary movements pretty regularly, or they're making their way back to Texas. So far, we have been able to document 9 males and 2 females making this transboundary movement. This is another example. This is a subadult male that was caught out of Sanderson, Texas. He traveled almost 100 miles just south of Lake Amistad, further showing that it's not just far west Texas where these movements are occurring, but all throughout the Texas-Mexico border. So we know that bears are naturally recolonizing the state. We have a baseline understanding of what these bears are doing in the borderlands. We know the populations are sustained by dispersal from Mexico to Texas and maintaining populations in Texas because of that ability to cross the Rio Grande River. But we can't fully understand what's going on until we think about the potential for border infrastructure impacting that ecology. So the transboundary black bear, the border protection activities may be influencing this movement. It's not that just the barrier itself, but the big lights that we talked about earlier that could be deterring nocturnal activity, the roads on both sides, and then the human and vehicle traffic in these areas as well. So the Transboundary Black Bear Project got started in 2024 with the overarching goal of understanding how these bears are traveling to and from Mexico and assessing if this barrier is impacting their movement. And so we are focused in Southwest Texas. And at the time of this project, started in 2024, this is what current border infrastructure is, indicated by the black lines here, near El Paso and in South Texas. But we do know that there are more plans for the rest of the state. We have 2 efforts going on within this project. We have a camera study, which is led by our master's student, Jesse Elgren. Jesse, where are you at? There you are, Jesse. And then we're also capturing and collaring bears in this area to look at their movements, which is led by myself. So with Jesse's study, he originally was looking to assess the presence and occupancy of bears by placing a network of 50 trail cameras within 7.5 miles of the Rio Grande River along Val Verde, Kinney, and Maverick counties. And his original question was, how does border infrastructure, other wildlife, and environmental factors influence bear movement and their recolonization? So some of preliminary results from his camera study, from April 2025 to April 2026, he has gathered over 760,000 photos with over 200,000 detections, totaling about 49 species or groups. And the most common of these species has been white-tailed deer, livestock, raccoon, and human. And the least common has been bobcat, skunk, mule deer, and mountain lion. And even more uncommon in this study area during the study period has actually been black bears. So we've only been able to detect 3 black bears during this time. So due to these lack of detections, Jesse is actually pivoting his research question to see how are medium to large-bodied carnivores influenced by current anthropogenic factors like the barrier and also resource factors like terrain and vegetation. So hopefully being able to evaluate this broader mammal community can help answer questions for black bear dispersal and recolonization. Jesse is actually defending this fall, so I encourage you to check back in and even ask him questions later about some of his final results. So some preliminary results from our capturing and collaring efforts. We have captured 4 individuals in Southwest Texas, indicated by the red dots here. It's in Val Verde in northern Terrell County. We've captured 3 females and 1 male. And surprising or not, this video is actually of a female that we caught. We've also been able to document mortalities in the study area, indicated by the purple dots on the map. And these mortalities are actually not these collared individuals. This is just after getting notified by Texas Parks and Wildlife that a mortality has occurred. And these have included bears that had been hit by cars. 1 was a human-wildlife conflict. And then 1 was a younger bear who climbed a power pole line and was unfortunately electrocuted. So our study area in Southwest Texas actually has pretty low densities compared to that of Brewster County. But fortunately, we have been able to document reproduction in this area. So including this female here in this video, we've also been able to document 2 subsequent reproduction events. So this female here was caught in 2024. At the time of her capture, she had 4 cubs with her. And we found out last year that all 4 cubs made it to yearlings before separating from mom. And then we found out this past spring that this same female had another litter of 2. So this is the same graphic, but the time period is 2023 to 2025. And it's showing our transboundary bears. So this is the male that was caught near Devil's River State Natural Area. And he traveled almost 60 miles within a 1-month period to Serranos del Brio Mountains in Mexico. He then made his way back to Devil's River State Natural Area, and then we were able to document this movement one more time, further demonstrating this need to make these transboundary movements. And this green here and about to be blue, these were females that were caught along the Pecos River. And then that 3rd female is not included in this graphic, so she wasn't captured at that time. So looking at movement from both projects, we have seen bears going back and forth to Mexico and traveling these long distances. And this is expected for a wide-ranging carnivore like black bears who occupy these large areas to search for food resources, mates, and new areas as populations expand. So none of our collared individuals has actually encountered the barrier because where they have crossed, there's currently only detection technology. But the population is continuing to expand, and the border barrier is continuing to be constructed. So this custom Border Patrol map on the right here, this has changed a lot since this project has started. In 2024, again, there's already infrastructure in place, shown in this map by the black lines. But as we know, there are plans for the rest of the state, including the national park. and this could be impacting the movement of these individuals. So based off of research from other border states, bears cannot cross certain types of structure that they have seen, like the steel baller structures here. And this is in Arizona. So we will have to find other mitigation strategies to allow for this movement of individuals and continue the recovery of the state-threatened species. So some future directions, our research is ongoing. One of our students here today, Jake Gowdy, raise your hand, Jake. He's looking at den site selection for these bears in the Trans-Pecos region. And we also have another student, Maddie Vastine, who's looking at spatial memory and movement patterns. We're also continuing our efforts for the Transboundary Project by monitoring cameras and capturing and collaring individuals in Southwest Texas. And we are targeting areas near the border to get a better idea of where these bears are crossing. Again, these bears, they haven't encountered the barrier, but we have an idea of where they're crossing, and this can give us more information on movement corridors. We're also looking at genetic connectivity to better understand gene flow across populations in Mexico and Texas, and then collaborating with Mexico on efforts such as expanding Matt's hair snare design to get a better estimate of density and abundance in Mexico. Thank you for hearing me speak about bears. I'd love to take any questions at this time, if we have time.
Yeah, well, that's 4 or 20 minutes for a couple of questions.
Less of a question, but so just something to point out, there was a black bear case of screwworm in Nuevo Leon. And so this information that Caitlin just presented is really important for us to understand also not only the animals that I talked about in my presentation, but some of these outlier animals that we wouldn't really expect when it comes to screwworm movement. And so as the diagrams were showing, we're seeing black bears move into Mexico and out and down in South Texas and Western Texas. So this is a huge opportunity for us to learn about potential movements, potential screwworm movements that could happen between Mexico and us. But then also these research partners, they let us know with their trail cams if they see something of concern, if they see a wound, they let us know so we can go and respond and investigate as well. So just another way I wanted to point out these collaborative efforts between universities when it comes to disease and things outside of what they're researching on their own. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because that's definitely something we're going to be looking for as we capture and collar.
Have time for one more question. No, could you use the microphone? I don't think everybody could hear you back in the back. Thank you.
Have you gotten any hair from the snare traps yet?
Yes, we have. And actually, Matt he processed a lot of the samples and actually got some results back from it. So it's pretty great to see. I'm also using some of his samples in my study to look at the genetic connectivity. So yeah, his prototype worked, and that's great.
Cool.
Thank you for your question.
Okay. Thank you, Caitlin. And I know you'll be around after the break.
Yeah.